You're eating steak, eggs, and bacon every single day, feeling like you're finally doing something right for your body. But then you hit a wall. Your energy tanks, your digestion goes haywire, or worse, you're not seeing the results you thought you'd get from eating nothing but meat. Sound familiar? Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Michael Reynolds, a nutritionist who helps people balance their blood sugar, improve their metabolic health, and understand their bodies on a deeper level. If you watched my last video on how to break through weight loss plateaus on keto, you know I'm all about cutting through the noise and giving you practical, science-based strategies that actually work. Today, we're diving deep into the carnivore diet, and more specifically, what foods are actually approved, and why getting this right matters more than you think. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of what you can eat, I need to address something that's causing so many people to fail on this way of eating. The biggest misconception about the carnivore diet is that it's just about eating meat. Period. End of story. People think they can just throw some ground beef in a pan, eat it plain, 3 times a day, and watch their health transform. And look, I get it. The simplicity is appealing. After years of counting macros, measuring portions, and reading ingredient labels until your eyes cross, the idea of just eating meat sounds like paradise. But here's what's actually happening in your body when you take that overly simplistic approach. You're missing critical nutrients that even within an all-animal framework, you need to be intentional about getting. You're potentially overloading certain pathways while starving others, and you're setting yourself up for what I call the carnivore crash, where you feel amazing for 2 weeks, and then suddenly you're dragging yourself out of bed, wondering why you feel worse than you did eating pizza and pasta. Think of your body like a high-performance engine. You wouldn't put just any fuel in a Ferrari, right? You need the right octane, the right additives, the right everything. The carnivore diet isn't about just throwing animal products at your body and hoping for the best. It's about understanding which animal products provide which nutrients and building a sustainable, varied approach within that framework. So, let's break down what actually matters when you're selecting your carnivore-approved foods. I'm going to walk you through the science of why variety matters even in a meat-based diet, what each category of animal foods brings to the table, and how to structure your eating so you're not just surviving, but absolutely thriving. The first thing you need to understand is that not all meat is created equal, and the cut you choose matters tremendously for your nutrient intake. When most people start carnivore, they gravitate toward muscle meat, ribeye steaks, chicken breasts, ground beef. And there's nothing wrong with these foods. They're delicious, they're satisfying, they're packed with protein. But muscle meat alone is missing something crucial. It's high in an amino acid called methionine, and relatively low in another amino acid called glycine. Now, why does this matter? Methionine is essential. Your body needs it. But when you consume methionine without adequate glycine to balance it, you can run into problems with how your body processes that methionine. It's like having a factory that produces something but doesn't have enough workers to package and ship it out. The production line backs up. In your body, this can lead to increased oxidative stress and inflammation. Not exactly what you signed up for when you decided to eat the most nutrient-dense diet possible. Glycine, on the other hand, is found abundantly in connective tissue, skin, bones, and cartilage. This is why our ancestors didn't just eat the prime cuts. They ate everything. They made bone broth. They ate the skin. They gnawed on cartilage. They understood intuitively what science is now confirming. You need the whole animal, not just the parts that look good on Instagram. So when we're talking about carnivore-approved foods, Yes, your grass-fed ribeye is absolutely on the list. Your ground beef, your bison or lamb chops, all approved. But so is that weird-looking bone-in cut with all the connective tissue still attached. So is the chicken thigh with the skin on. So is the oxtail that takes 6 hours to breathe into submission. These aren't just approved, they're essential. The second critical factor is organ meat. And I know what you're thinking. You're already mentally checking out because the idea of eating liver makes you want to gag. Stay with me here. Organ meats are what I call nature's multivitamin. And there's simply no way to replicate what they provide using only muscle meat. We're talking about the most concentrated sources of vitamins and minerals available in any food on the planet. Let's talk about liver specifically, because it's the most nutrient-dense organ you can eat. 100 grams of beef liver contains over 700% of your daily vitamin A needs, over 2,000% of your vitamin B12, significant amounts of folate, riboflavin, copper, and iron. This isn't supplement-level nutrition. This is beyond supplement-level nutrition. This is the food that kept human beings thriving for millennia before we had the luxury of avoiding foods based on taste preference alone. Your body uses vitamin A for immune function, vision, reproduction, and cellular communication. B12 is essential for nerve function, DNA production, and red blood cell formation. Without adequate B12, you don't just feel tired. You can develop neurological problems that can become permanent if left unchecked. Copper is critical for iron metabolism, energy production, and connective tissue formation. Iron, obviously, carries oxygen to every cell in your body. You simply cannot get these nutrients in these amounts from muscle meat alone. You can eat all the steak you want, and you'll never come close to the nutrient density of liver. And before you tell me you'll just take a supplement, understand that the bioavailability of nutrients from whole foods, especially organ meats, is vastly superior to synthetic vitamins. Your body recognizes these nutrients in their natural form and knows exactly what to do with them. Now, if liver really is a bridge too far for you, there are options. You can get freeze-dried organ meat capsules. You can hide small amounts of liver in ground beef. You can make pâté. But ideally, you're working toward incorporating organ meats in some form at least once or twice a week. Heart is another incredible option. It's technically a muscle, so the texture is much more familiar. But nutritionally, it falls somewhere between muscle meat and organs. It's rich in CoQ10, an antioxidant that's crucial for energy production at the cellular level. Kidney is high in selenium and B vitamins. Tongue is rich in healthy fats and tastes remarkably similar to a really tender roast beef. Bone marrow is pure, creamy fat, loaded with vitamins K2, A, and E, plus it supports stem cell function and immune health. The point is, there's a spectrum of organ meats with varying textures and flavors, and finding what works for you is part of the process. The third element that often gets overlooked is the quality and type of fat you're consuming. On carnivore, fat becomes your primary energy source since you've eliminated carbohydrates. But not all animal fats are created equal, and the ratio of fatty acids you consume has profound implications for inflammation, hormone production, and metabolic health. Ruminant animals like cows, bison, lamb, and goat produce fat that's uniquely beneficial for human health. These animals have a multi-chambered stomach that allows them to convert the omega-6 fatty acids from grains and grasses into more stable, less inflammatory fats. When you eat fat from a ruminant animal, you're getting a fatty acid profile that's much higher in saturated and monounsaturated fats and lower in polyunsaturated fats, especially omega-6. This matters because while omega-6 fatty acids aren't inherently bad, the modern diet has pushed the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 to somewhere around 20-1, or even higher in some people. Historically, this ratio was closer to 1-1 or 2-1. This massive imbalance drives chronic inflammation, which underlies virtually every chronic disease we're dealing with today. Heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune conditions, neurodegenerative diseases. Inflammation is the common thread. When you focus on ruminant fats, you're naturally correcting this ratio. Beef tallow, lamb fat, and bison fat are incredibly stable for cooking and provide steady, sustained energy without the inflammatory burden. Compare this to chicken or pork fat, which while still animal-based and carnivore-approved, contains significantly more polyunsaturated fats, particularly omega-6. This doesn't mean you can't eat chicken or pork. It means you should be aware of the difference and prioritize ruminant meats as your foundation. There's also something called conjugated linoleic acid, or CLA, found primarily in the fat of grass-fed ruminants. CLA has been shown to have anti-cancer properties, support fat loss, improve insulin sensitivity, and reduce inflammation. You're not getting this from chicken. You're not getting this from pork. You're getting it from that beautiful marbling in your grass-fed steak and from the fat cap you should absolutely not be trimming off. Then there's stearic acid, a saturated fat found abundantly in beef fat. Emerging research suggests stearic acid may actually improve mitochondrial function and metabolic health. It doesn't raise LDL cholesterol the way other saturated fats might. And it may even improve your cholesterol profile by increasing HDL, the protective cholesterol. Your body converts stearic acid into oleic acid, the same monounsaturated fat found in olive oil that everyone agrees is healthy. So when we talk about carnivore-approved fats, we're talking about prioritizing ruminant fats first. Beef tallow for cooking, lamb fat, bison fat. Then you can incorporate other animal fats like butter, ghee, duck fat, and yes, bacon fat, understanding they each bring something slightly different to the table. Butter and ghee, for instance, are excellent sources of fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K2, plus butyrate, a short-chain fatty acid that feeds your gut lining and has powerful anti-inflammatory effects. The fourth critical component is seafood and fish, and this is where the carnivore diet really expands beyond what most people initially imagine. Fish and seafood are absolutely carnivore-approved and bring unique nutrients that land animals simply don't provide in the same amounts. We're talking about omega-3 fatty acids, specifically EPA and DHA, which are anti-inflammatory powerhouses and essential for brain health, heart health, and cellular function throughout your entire body. Salmon, sardines, mackerel, anchovies, these fatty fish are loaded with omega-3s. They also provide vitamin D, selenium, and iodine, nutrients that many people are deficient in, especially if you're not eating seafood regularly. Shellfish like oysters, mussels, clams, and scallops are nutritional gold mines. 6 medium oysters provide over 600% of your daily zinc needs, over 200% of your B12, plus significant amounts of iron, selenium, and copper. Zinc is crucial for immune function, wound healing, protein synthesis, and testosterone production. If you're a guy wondering why your energy or libido isn't what it used to be, zinc deficiency might be part of the equation. If you're dealing with frequent colds or slow wound healing, same thing. Oysters are quite literally nature's zinc supplement, and they're carnivore approved. Shrimp, crab, and lobster provide high-quality protein with virtually no fat, making them excellent options if you're trying to moderate your fat intake for any reason. They're also good sources of selenium and vitamin B12. Even something like squid or octopus, which might seem exotic, is just another form of animal protein that fits perfectly within the carnivore framework. The key with seafood is quality and sourcing. Wild-caught fish is always preferable to farmed because of the different fatty acid profiles and potential contaminant exposure. Small fish like sardines and anchovies are lower on the food chain and therefore accumulate fewer toxins like mercury. If you're eating larger fish like tuna or swordfish, be mindful of frequency because of mercury content. The fifth factor is eggs, and specifically how you're preparing them and what you're eating. Eggs are one of the most perfect foods on the planet. They're a complete protein source, meaning they contain all 9 essential amino acids in the right ratios. They're loaded with choline, which is critical for brain health, liver function, and methylation, a process that affects everything from your mood to your detoxification pathways. The yolk is where most of the nutrition lives. You've got fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. You've got lutein and zeaxanthin for eye health. You've got cholesterol, which despite decades of fear-mongering, is essential for hormone production, vitamin D synthesis, and cell membrane integrity. Your body makes about 80% of the cholesterol it needs because it's that important. The dietary cholesterol from eggs doesn't increase heart disease risk in the vast majority of people. That myth has been thoroughly debunked. What does matter is how you cook your eggs and what quality eggs you're buying. Scrambled eggs cooked in rancid vegetable oil are not the same as eggs from pasture-raised chickens cooked in butter. The chicken's diet affects the nutrient profile of the egg. Pasture-raised eggs have significantly more omega-3s, more vitamins A and E, and a better overall nutrient density compared to conventional eggs from chickens raised in cages, eating only grain. Cooking method matters because overheating can oxidize the cholesterol and fats in the yolk, potentially creating compounds that are inflammatory. This doesn't mean you can't cook your eggs. It means gentle cooking methods like soft boiling, poaching, or over easy are ideal. If you're scrambling, do it on lower heat with plenty of fat to protect the delicate compounds in the yolk. Some people on carnivore eat a dozen eggs a day. Others can't tolerate more than 2 or 3 without digestive issues. Eggs do contain proteins that can be problematic for people with certain sensitivities, particularly the proteins in the egg white. If you're experiencing any kind of inflammatory response or digestive distress after eating eggs, try eliminating them for a few weeks and see how you feel. The sixth element that's often debated but absolutely belongs on the carnivore-approved list is dairy, with some important caveats. Dairy is an animal product, so from a purely definitional standpoint, it fits. But dairy is also the most individual thing on this entire list. Some people thrive on dairy. Others react to it with inflammation, digestive issues, or skin problems. The carnivore community generally considers hard cheeses and heavy cream more acceptable than milk or soft cheeses because they're lower in lactose, the milk sugar that many adults can't properly digest. The fermentation process in cheese making also breaks down some of the problematic proteins and sugars. The sharp-aged cheddar or Parmesan has very little lactose and can be a great source of fat, protein, calcium, and vitamin K2. Butter and ghee are even better because they're almost entirely fat with minimal protein or lactose. Ghee, which is clarified butter with the milk solids removed, is often tolerated even by people who react to other forms of dairy. These are excellent cooking fats and sources of fat-soluble vitamins. Milk, on the other hand, contains a significant amount of lactose and proteins like casein and whey that can trigger immune responses in sensitive individuals. If you're doing strict carnivore, especially for therapeutic reasons like autoimmune conditions or severe metabolic dysfunction, dairy is often eliminated, at least initially. Once you've healed and established a baseline, you can experiment with reintroducing high-quality dairy and see how your body responds. Raw dairy from grass-fed cows is different from conventional pasteurized, homogenized milk from grain-fed cows. The processing destroys beneficial enzymes and probiotics, and the quality of the milk reflects what the cow ate. If you have access to raw dairy from a trusted source and you tolerate it well, it can be an incredibly nutrient-dense addition to a carnivore diet. If you don't tolerate it or don't have access to quality dairy, you can absolutely thrive on carnivore without it. Now let's talk about some of the less obvious carnivore-approved foods that people often overlook or don't even know exist within this framework. Animal-based fats and products that aren't necessarily the main protein source but add tremendous value. Bone broth is at the top of this list. It's made by simmering bones, often with some connective tissue and meat still attached, for hours or even days. This process extracts collagen, gelatin, minerals, and amino acids like glycine and proline. Remember when I talked about the methionine-glycine balance earlier? Bone broth is your glycine delivery system. It's also incredibly easy on digestion, making it perfect for people who are transitioning to carnivore or dealing with gut issues. The gelatin in bone broth supports gut lining integrity, joint health, skin elasticity, and hair and nail strength. It's also been used traditionally as a healing food across virtually every culture because it works. You can drink bone broth plain, use it as a base for cooking meat, or reduce it down into a rich, concentrated form that you can add to other dishes. Making your own is ideal because you control the quality of the bones and the cooking process. But there are also high-quality commercially available bone broths if you're short on time. Collagen and gelatin supplements derived from animal sources are also carnivore-approved, though whole food sources are always preferable. If you're not making bone broth regularly and you're not eating skin and connective tissue, supplementing with collagen can help fill that gap. Look for products made from grass-fed, pasture-raised animals. Another often overlooked category is animal-based seasonings and flavor enhancers. Salt is obviously allowed and actually essential on a carnivore diet. When you eliminate carbohydrates, your body excretes more sodium through your kidneys. You need to replace that sodium or you'll experience fatigue, headaches, weakness, and what people often call the keto flu, or in this case, the carnivore flu. Don't be afraid of salt. Your body will tell you when you've had enough. Use high-quality salt like sea salt, Himalayan pink salt, or Redmond real salt, which contain trace minerals in addition to sodium. These minerals support hydration, nerve function, and muscle contraction. Fish sauce, made from fermented fish, is pure animal product and adds incredible umami flavor to meat dishes. Pork rinds are deep-fried pig skin, pure protein and fat, and make a great, crunchy snack. Some people also include things like beef gelatin, beef collagen, egg white protein powder, and even bone meal, though these are more supplemental than primary foods. Rendered animal fats like schmaltz, which is chicken fat, or duck fat are excellent for cooking and add flavor. Lard from pigs is widely available and works well for cooking, though remember, it's higher in polyunsaturated fats than ruminant fats. These are all animal-derived, carnivore-approved, and can add variety to your cooking. Now, I want to address the elephant in the room, or maybe I should say the cow in the room, which is the question of what's not carnivore approved. This is where people get confused because the diet is so simple in theory, but there are edge cases and gray areas that need clarification. Plant foods are out, all of them. Vegetables, fruits, grains, legumes, nuts, seeds. This is an animal-based diet by definition. That means no salads, no avocados, no almond flour bread, no coconut oil, no olive oil, unless you're in the camp that uses it sparingly for flavor. Strict carnivore is exclusively animal products. Now, there are people who call themselves carnivore, but include things like coffee, tea, or certain spices. These are technically not carnivore because they're plant-derived, but the community has a range of approaches. Some people are strict zero-carb, animal-only. Others include coffee because the benefits outweigh any theoretical concerns. Others use spices like black pepper or dried herbs for flavor. My position is this. If you're doing carnivore for therapeutic reasons, to heal from autoimmune disease, to address severe gut issues, or to reset your metabolic health, start with strict carnivore. Just meat, fish, eggs, animal fat, salt, and water. Give your body time to heal without any potential irritants or confounding variables. After 60 to 90 days, if you want to experiment with adding back coffee or certain spices, do it one at a time and pay attention to how you feel. If you're doing carnivore for general health, weight loss, or metabolic improvement, and you feel great including coffee or a bit of cayenne pepper on your steak, there's no carnivore police coming to take your membership card. The goal is to optimize your health, not to adhere to dogma for dogma's sake. Sweeteners are another gray area. Honey is sometimes debated because it's an animal product, made by bees, but it's primarily sugar, and most carnivore practitioners avoid it, especially in the beginning. Artificial sweeteners, stevia, monk fruit, these are all plant-derived and generally not considered carnivore. Some people use small amounts without issue. Others find they trigger cravings or stall progress. Alcohol is not carnivore-approved in the strict sense, though some people include things like dry wine or spirits occasionally. Alcohol is metabolized as a toxin by your liver, and while having a glass of wine once in a while probably isn't going to derail your health, it's not something you'd include if you're being strict about the diet. The most important thing is understanding why you're eating this way and what your goals are. If you're trying to heal something specific, be strict. If you're trying to maintain health and you've already seen improvement, you have more flexibility to experiment. But always pay attention to how your body responds. Your body is the ultimate arbiter of what works for you. Let me give you a practical step-by-step action plan for building a sustainable carnivore diet with all the approved foods we've discussed. This is how you set yourself up for success rather than falling into the trap of eating the same ground beef every single day until you burn out. Step 1. Establish your foundation with ruminant muscle meat. This is beef, bison, lamb, goat, elk, venison, any four-legged animal that chews its cud. Make this the bulk of your meals. Aim for a variety of cuts. Fatty cuts like ribeye, chuck roast, and short ribs. Medium fat cuts like sirloin and tri-tip. Fattier ground beef. At least 20% fat. Preferably 30%. Buy the best quality you can afford. Grass-fed and grass-finished is ideal because the nutrient profile is superior and you're avoiding the potential issues with grain-fed beef like higher omega-6 content and possible residues from pesticides, herbicides, and antibiotics. But if budget is a concern, conventional beef is still infinitely better than the standard American diet of processed foods and seed oils. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Cook your meat in animal fat. Use tallow, ghee, butter, or duck fat. Season with salt generously. Eat until you're satisfied. Don't count calories. Don't restrict fat. Your body knows what it needs when you remove the processed foods and sugar that hijack your satiety signals. Step 2. Incorporate organ meats at least once or twice per week. Start with liver. If you've never eaten organs before, buy fresh beef liver or chicken liver. Cut it into small pieces and freeze what you're not using immediately. When you cook ground beef, throw in a small amount of liver, maybe 20% liver to 80% ground beef. You won't even taste it, but you'll get those incredible nutrients. If you absolutely can't do fresh organs, get freeze-dried organ capsules from a reputable company. Take them according to the package instructions. It's not quite as good as eating the real thing, but it's better than nothing. Branch out to heart, which you can slice thin and grill or pan fry. It's delicious and much less intimidating than liver. Try bone marrow roasted in the oven with salt. It's rich and buttery and feels like a decadent treat while being incredibly nourishing. Step 3. Include fatty fish and seafood 2 to 3 times per week. Salmon, sardines, mackerel, herring, anchovies. You're getting those omega-3s that you can't get from land animals in the same amounts. You're also getting iodine, selenium, and vitamin D. Eat oysters or other shellfish at least once a week for zinc and other trace minerals. If fresh seafood isn't accessible, canned fish is perfectly fine. Sardines packed in olive oil or water, canned salmon, even canned oysters if you can find them. These are convenient, shelf-stable, and nutrient-dense. Step 4. Eat eggs daily, unless you have a known sensitivity. 3 to 6 eggs per day is a reasonable target for most people, though some eat more and do fine. Prioritize pasture-raised eggs if you can get them. Cook them gently. Soft-boiled, poached, over-easy, or scrambled on low heat with plenty of butter. The combination of eggs and meat gives you a complete nutrient profile. You're getting protein, fat, vitamins, minerals, and all the building blocks your body needs to thrive. Step 5. Consume bone broth regularly, especially in the first few weeks. As you're adapting, make a big batch once a week. Use beef bones, chicken feet, whatever you can get from a butcher, or save from your own cooking. Simmer with a splash of apple cider vinegar to help extract minerals, though if you're strict carnivore, you might skip this. Drink a cup of warm bone broth in the morning or between meals. Use it to cook your meat. It supports digestion, provides glycine, and keeps you hydrated with electrolytes. It's also incredibly satisfying and can help with any hunger between meals as your body adjusts to this way of eating. Step 6. Experiment with dairy if you're interested, but do it mindfully. Start with the most tolerable forms like aged hard cheese, butter, or ghee. A tablespoon of butter on your steak, a few ounces of sharp cheddar as a snack, heavy cream in your coffee if you're including coffee. Pay attention to how you feel. Any bloating, gas, skin issues, or mucus production after eating dairy might indicate you're sensitive. If that happens, remove it for a few weeks and see if symptoms clear. You can always reintroduce later or simply accept that dairy doesn't work for your body. Step 7. Pay attention to your salt and electrolyte intake. When you cut carbs, you lose water and electrolytes rapidly. You need sodium, potassium, and magnesium. Salt your food liberally. Drink bone broth for minerals. If you're experiencing headaches, fatigue, or muscle cramps, you likely need more salt. Some people supplement with magnesium, especially in the adaptation phase. Magnesium glycinate is a good form that doesn't cause digestive issues. Potassium is found in meat, especially beef and salmon. But if you're feeling off, a potassium supplement, or even a small amount of a product like Morton Light Salt, which is half sodium and half potassium, can help. Stay hydrated, but don't overdo it. Drink when you're thirsty. Your body is quite good at regulating this when you're not eating processed foods with tons of hidden sodium. Now let's talk about what to expect as you implement this way of eating, because it's not all smooth sailing from day one. There's an adaptation period that most people go through, and knowing what's normal versus what's a red flag is important. In the first few days to 2 weeks, you might experience what's called the adaptation flu. This is your body switching from burning primarily glucose to burning primarily fat for fuel. You might feel tired, irritable, foggy, headachy, or weak. This is normal and temporary. It does not mean the diet isn't working or that it's unhealthy. It means your body is undergoing a metabolic shift. The best way to minimize this is to eat plenty of fat, don't restrict calories, get adequate salt and electrolytes, and give yourself permission to rest more if needed. Most people feel significantly better within 2 weeks. By week 3 or 4, you should be experiencing improved energy, mental clarity, and physical performance. Digestion can be weird initially. Some people get constipated because they're used to getting fiber from plants and suddenly they're not. Here's the thing though, you don't need fiber on a carnivore diet. Fiber is what's called bulking material. It adds volume to stool and can speed transit time. But on carnivore, you're eating highly digestible foods that your body absorbs efficiently. There's less waste. It's not uncommon to go to the bathroom less frequently on carnivore. If you're going every 2 or 3 days and you feel fine, that's normal. If you're bloated, uncomfortable, or straining, increase your fat intake and make sure you're drinking enough water. Bone broth can also help. On the flip side, some people experience loose stools or diarrhea in the beginning, especially if they're eating a lot of fat suddenly. Your gallbladder produces bile to digest fat, and if you've been eating low fat for years, it might not be producing enough initially. This usually resolves within a few weeks as your body adapts. Supporting your digestion with ox bile supplements can help if this is an issue. Some people experience what's called the carnivore runs, where they have urgent bowel movements, especially after eating. This can be related to the type of fat, the amount of fat, or even a histamine reaction to aged meats or certain proteins. If it persists beyond a few weeks, try adjusting your fat intake, choosing fresher meats, and see if that helps. Acne or skin breakouts can occur initially as your body detoxes and hormones rebalance. This is usually temporary. If it's severe or persistent, consider whether you might be sensitive to dairy or eggs. Removing those can often clear it up. Increased thirst and urination are normal initially as your body releases stored water. This is why electrolytes are so important. Your kidneys are flushing out excess water and sodium, and you need to replace what's lost. Some people experience heart palpitations or a racing heart rate, which is almost always an electrolyte issue, specifically sodium and magnesium. Increase your salt intake. Consider magnesium supplementation, and make sure you're eating enough food in general. Undereating is a common mistake that can stress your system. After the adaptation phase, most people report feeling incredible, mental clarity and focus like they've never experienced. Steady, sustained energy throughout the day without crashes, improved mood and reduced anxiety, better sleep, reduced inflammation and joint pain, weight loss and improved body composition, stabilized blood sugar and reversed insulin resistance, clearer skin, stronger nails and hair. These aren't just anecdotal reports. They're consistent patterns seen across thousands of people who've adopted this way of eating. And you've given your body exactly what it needs to function optimally. But I want to be really clear about something. Carnivore is not a magic bullet, and it's not for everyone. Some people have genetic variations that make them process animal fats differently. Some people have existing health conditions that need to be monitored carefully if they're eating this way. Some people simply feel better, including some plant foods. If you have kidney disease, you need to work with a doctor before trying carnivore because of the high protein intake. If you have a history of eating disorders, the restrictive nature of any elimination diet might not be psychologically healthy for you. If you're pregnant or breastfeeding, you need to be especially mindful about nutrient density and possibly including certain supplements. The point is, this is a powerful dietary intervention that can be incredibly healing for many people, but it's not one size fits all. Pay attention to your body. Get lab work done before you start and at regular intervals. Work with a healthcare provider who understands this way of eating if possible. And understand that even within carnivore, there's flexibility and personalization. Some people thrive on beef only. Others need more variety with fish, eggs, and organs. Some people do better with higher fat. Others feel better with leaner cuts and moderate fat. Some people need dairy for the extra calories and calcium. Others can't touch it without issues. The approved foods list I've given you is your framework. Within that framework, you have room to experiment, adjust, and find what makes you feel your absolute best. The goal is not to eat according to someone else's rules. The goal is to understand the principles, implement them thoughtfully, and then personalize based on your unique body, goals, and circumstances. One of the most common questions I get is about the long-term sustainability of carnivore. Can you really eat this way for years or decades without nutrient deficiencies or health problems? And this is where the conversation gets really interesting, because we have both historical evidence and modern data to look at. Historically, there are cultures that lived almost entirely on animal foods. The Inuit peoples of the Arctic survived for thousands of years eating primarily seal, whale, fish, and caribou. The Maasai tribes in Africa consumed mostly meat, milk, and blood from cattle. The Mongolian steppes populations lived on meat and dairy. These weren't short-term experiments. These were sustainable ways of eating that supported thriving populations. Now, the counter-argument is often that these populations had shorter lifespans. But when you adjust for infant mortality, infectious diseases, and lack of modern medicine, you find that many of these people lived into their 70s, 80s, and beyond, with remarkably low rates of chronic disease. They didn't have heart disease at the rates we see in modern society. They didn't have diabetes, autoimmune conditions, or neurodegenerative diseases in significant numbers. Modernly, we have people who've been eating carnivore for 5, 10, 15 years with excellent health markers. We have blood work showing normalized lipid profiles, reversed insulin resistance, reduced inflammatory markers, and optimal nutrient status. We have athletes performing at elite levels on carnivore. We have people reversing autoimmune conditions that conventional medicine said were incurable. The key to long-term success is everything we've discussed. Variety within the animal kingdom, including organ meats and seafood, paying attention to nutrient density, getting adequate salt and minerals, and listening to your body's signals. If you're eating only muscle meat and nothing else, yes, you'll eventually run into problems. But if you're following the framework I've laid out, eating nose to tail, including fish and shellfish, consuming bone broth, and being mindful about quality, there's no reason you can't thrive on this way of eating for as long as it serves you. Some people use carnivore as a short-term elimination diet to heal their gut or reset their metabolism. Then they transition to a more varied, animal-based diet that includes some well-tolerated plant foods. Others find that they feel best staying strict carnivore indefinitely. Both approaches can be healthy if done thoughtfully. The most important thing is removing the foods that are clearly problematic. Processed foods, seed oils, excessive sugar, and refined carbohydrates. Foods you're individually sensitive to. Whether you eat carnivore, keto, paleo, or some other whole foods approach, is less important than the fact that you're eating real, nutrient-dense food and avoiding the garbage that's making people sick. Now, let's address some of the common objections and concerns people have about carnivore. Because I know some of you are sitting there thinking, this sounds great, but also kind of insane or dangerous. Let's tackle these head-on with science and reason. The first objection is usually about cholesterol and heart disease. People have been told for decades that eating meat, especially red meat and saturated fat, will clog your arteries and give you a heart attack. This is one of the biggest and most damaging nutritional myths of the last century. The truth is, dietary cholesterol has minimal impact on blood cholesterol for most people. Your liver produces the vast majority of the cholesterol in your body because it's essential for so many functions. When you eat more cholesterol, your liver produces less. When you eat less, it produces more. It's a tightly regulated system. The type of LDL cholesterol matters more than the total amount. Small, dense LDL particles are associated with heart disease. Large, fluffy LDL particles are not. Guess what increases small, dense LDL? Sugar and refined carbohydrates. Guess what tends to increase large, fluffy LDL? Saturated fat. HDL cholesterol, the protective kind, goes up on a high-fat diet. Triglycerides, a strong predictor of heart disease risk, go down dramatically when you cut carbs and sugar. The ratio of triglycerides to HDL cholesterol is one of the best predictors of heart disease risk, and carnivore improves this ratio dramatically in most people. Inflammation, measured by markers like C-reactive protein, is the real driver of heart disease. Oxidative stress, endothelial dysfunction, insulin resistance. These are the mechanisms that damage your arteries. Carnivore addresses all of these. It reduces inflammation, improves insulin sensitivity, and provides antioxidants and nutrients that protect your cardiovascular system. There are thousands of people eating carnivore with excellent cardiovascular health markers. There are people who've been eating this way for years, had coronary calcium scans showing no arterial calcification, and have perfect stress tests and echocardiograms. The fear about cholesterol and saturated fat is based on outdated science and correlation studies that don't prove causation. The second objection is about cancer, specifically the claim that red meat causes cancer. This comes from epidemiological studies that show an association between red meat consumption and certain cancers, particularly colorectal cancer. But association is not causation, and when you dig into these studies, the problems become obvious. These studies don't differentiate between a grass-fed steak and a fast food burger with a bun, fries, and a soda. They don't account for the fact that people who eat a lot of red meat in these studies are often eating it alongside processed foods, refined carbs, and seed oils. They're not exercising. They're smoking. They're overweight. These are confounding factors that make it impossible to say red meat is the problem. Processed meat like hot dogs, deli meat with nitrates, and bacon with added sugar are lumped in with unprocessed meat in many of these studies. There's a huge difference between a piece of wild-caught salmon or grass-fed steak and a gas station hot dog. Mechanistically, the claim is that heme iron, your certain compounds formed during high-heat cooking, cause cancer. But heme iron is the most bioavailable form of iron, and your body tightly regulates iron absorption. The compounds formed during cooking, like heterocyclic amines or polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, are created when meat is charred at very high temperatures. The solution is to not burn your meat, not to avoid meat altogether. Meanwhile, we know that sugar feeds cancer cells. We know that insulin resistance is linked to multiple types of cancer. We know that chronic inflammation drives cancer development. Carnivore addresses all of these risk factors. The third objection is about the environment and sustainability. The claim is that eating meat is destroying the planet, that cattle produce methane, that it takes too much water and land to raise animals. This is a complex topic, but the narrative is overly simplistic and often misleading. Regenerative agriculture, where cattle are raised on pasture and rotated to improve soil health, actually sequesters carbon. Grasslands with grazing animals are carbon sinks. The methane argument ignores the fact that ruminants are part of natural ecosystems and that modern industrial farming of crops also produces significant greenhouse gases from fertilizers, pesticides, and machinery. The water usage claims often include rainfall that would fall on the land whether cattle were there or not. The land used for grazing is often land that's not suitable for growing crops. You can't grow broccoli in the high desert or on rocky hillsides, but you can graze cattle there. Factory farming is a problem, I agree. The solution is supporting regenerative farms, local ranchers, and sustainable practices, not demonizing meat entirely. Monoculture crop farming destroys topsoil, uses massive amounts of water and chemicals, kills biodiversity, and is not sustainable long-term. Humans evolved eating animals. Indigenous cultures have lived sustainably with animals for millennia. The problem is not meat. The problem is industrialization, overconsumption, and poor agricultural practices across the board, both in animal and crop production. The fourth objection is social and practical. How do you eat out? How do you handle social situations? Won't you be miserable giving up all your favorite foods? These are valid concerns, and I won't pretend carnivore is always convenient or easy in a carb-centric world. Eating out is doable. Order a steak with butter. Get a burger without the bun. Ask for extra bacon with your eggs. Most restaurants can accommodate you if you're polite and clear about what you want. It might not be perfect, but it's workable. Social situations require communication and boundary setting. Explain to your friends and family that you're eating this way for health reasons. Bring your own food to gatherings if needed. Most people will understand and support you once they see the results you're getting. As for missing foods, this is real, especially initially. Food is tied to culture, memory, and emotion. But most people find that after a few weeks, cravings disappear. Your palate changes. Meat becomes incredibly satisfying. You stop thinking about bread or pasta because you don't need them anymore. And if you're truly miserable, if this way of eating is making you anxious or obsessive or joyless, then it's not the right approach for you, at least not right now. Health is holistic. It includes mental and emotional well-being, not just physical markers. Let me give you some final practical tips for making carnivore work in real life. Because theory is great, but implementation is where most people struggle. Meal prep is your friend. Cook large batches of meat at the beginning of the week. Grill a bunch of burgers. Roast a big chuck roast. Bake a whole salmon. Store it in the fridge and reheat as needed. You can eat the same foods multiple times without it being a problem because your body craves nutrients, not variety for variety's sake. Invest in a good instant pot or slow cooker. Tougher, cheaper cuts of meat like chuck roast, brisket, or oxtail become incredibly tender and delicious when cooked low and slow. These cuts are often fattier and more nutrient-dense than the expensive steaks. Find a local butcher or farm where you can buy in bulk. A quarter cow or half a pig can save you money and give you access to better quality meat and a variety of cuts, including organs and bones. Build a relationship with your butcher. They can save you organ meats, bones for broth, and specialty cuts that don't make it to the grocery store. Keep it simple. You don't need elaborate recipes or fancy cooking techniques. Salt, meat, heat. That's it. If you want to get fancy, add butter or make a pan sauce from the drippings. But simplicity is one of the beauties of this diet. Listen to your hunger cues. Eat when you're hungry. Stop when you're full. Don't force yourself to eat if you're not hungry just because it's mealtime. Don't restrict if you're genuinely hungry. Your body is recalibrating, and its signals become trustworthy when you remove the foods that hijack those signals. Track how you feel, not just what you eat. Keep a journal of your energy, mood, digestion, sleep, and any symptoms. This helps you identify patterns and make adjustments. If you feel worse after eating eggs, you have that data. If you feel amazing after eating salmon, you know to include it more often. Be patient with the process. Real, lasting change takes time. You didn't develop insulin resistance or chronic inflammation overnight, and you won't reverse it overnight. Give yourself at least 60 to 90 days of strict adherence before you judge whether this is working for you. Connect with community. There are countless carnivore groups online, on social media, and even in person. Learning from others who've been doing this longer, getting support when you're struggling, and celebrating victories together makes the journey much easier. And finally, be flexible in your thinking. This is not a religion. It's a dietary strategy. If you need to adjust, adjust. If you need to include certain foods that aren't strictly carnivore, but help you adhere to the bigger principles, do that. The goal is health and vitality, not perfection or dogma. I know this has been a lot of information, and if your head is spinning, that's okay. The main takeaway is this. Carnivore is not just about eating any meat. It's about eating a variety of animal products in their most nutrient-dense forms. Muscle meat, organ meats, seafood, eggs, quality fats, bone broth, and optionally dairy if you tolerate it. Focus on ruminant animals for your foundation. Include fish and shellfish for omega-3s and minerals. Eat organs for the most concentrated nutrition available. Don't fear fat or salt. Give your body time to adapt. Pay attention to how you feel and adjust accordingly. This way of eating has the potential to transform your health in ways you might not think are possible. Reversed diabetes. Eliminated autoimmune symptoms. Lost weight that wouldn't budge on any other diet. Improved mental clarity and mood. Better digestion. More energy. Clearer skin. The list goes on. But it requires commitment, at least initially. It requires going against the mainstream nutritional advice you've been hearing your whole life. It requires being willing to experiment on yourself and trust your body's feedback over what some guideline or study says. You are the expert on your own body. No one else can tell you definitively what's right for you. Use the science as a guide. Use the principles I've outlined as a framework. Then personalize and adjust based on your unique response. This is complex. There's no question about that. Our bodies are complex. Health is multifaceted. But the beautiful thing about carnivore is that within this complexity, there's profound simplicity. Eat animals, prioritize nutrient density, give your body what it needs. Remove what's harming you. The rest tends to fall into place. You have all the information you need now to implement a well-formulated carnivore diet using approved foods that will nourish you at the deepest level. The question is, are you willing to try it? Are you willing to challenge what you think you know about nutrition and give your body a chance to show you what it's capable of when properly fueled. I believe you are, or you wouldn't have stuck with me through this entire video. So take this information, implement it thoughtfully, and see what happens. Track your results, adjust as needed, and most importantly, trust the process. If you want more information on how to navigate the adaptation phase or what to do if you hit a plateau on carnivore, check out my previous video on breaking through weight loss stalls on keto. A lot of the principles overlap, and you'll find some additional strategies there that can help. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.